That is such a catchy jam. Hello, everybody. I don't know who actually created that catchy jam. It's probably something from Epidemic Sound. Referral code below. Actually, no, not really. We're here to do a live stream. We're back. Craig is not with us today because he's out doing more important things. But I am here with two lovely, awesome people to talk about the state of the EV industry in the United States, because this is a family-friendly show, but it is a cluster. Insert your own adjective word here. First to the stage, he's been on EV Pulse before. He's my good friend, Mr. Roberto Baldwin. He's in a band, several bands, more bands than you can count. He's the sustainability editor at SAE. He's in 7 bands. Name them all, please.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Flippy Floppy, North American Scum, Robots After All, Suburban Robots, The Becky Boys, Drastic Cats, The Modern Roadrunners. Boom, 7.
There we go. And Drastic Cats once did a song in honor of me as part of a a feeding. I was gonna try to find it and load it and play it, but I was like, I'm not gonna get the copyright strike because you'll take me down.
Nah, I would let you. It's fine. It's just me and another guy. We're cool.
Speaking of taking me down, the death of me will be probably Craig Fitzgerald.
The less famous Craig.
Also in a band. Craig. Also, yeah, that's true. Also in a band.
Yep.
I'm the least musically inclined here. I guess you don't have 7 bands, but name your band since this is
it is the Sonomatics from Worcester, Massachusetts.
Nice.
If you haven't heard, Craig has an accent.
Yeah, that's right. We will be talking about cars here on the podcast.
So, you speaking of just when you go full into that accent, it really does remind me of Car Talk. And
yeah.
You've done some work with Car Talk.
I have, yeah. I was a digital editor for Car Talk for a long time, and still love those folks over there. It's
personal friends with John Bugsy Lawler.
Correct. He's my mentor. Yep.
I need a food advisor. He's typically the food advisor.
He's the best. Yeah. And I went to Cuba with Ray, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was great.
Exciting.
Great trip.
That could be a whole episode in itself, which we won't turn that into. But thank you both for being here. Robbie, you also do more than just be the sustainability editor at SAE, but figuring talking about EVs, SAE is probably, you're in the know. You're the resident expert.
Oh dear.
Tell me everything about J3400 and every other J.
J34. Oh, every other J.
J34. 2807. I know that one too.
That's the towing one?
That is the towing. That's
look at that.
Woo! All right.
I hope someone from work is watching.
Maybe. I don't know. Speaking of people who possibly are from work or who are possibly watching, this is the first time that we've done this as a simulcast across the web, meaning it's streaming to more than just YouTube. As far as I know, the software that we use will allow comments that we'll be able to see both on YouTube and Facebook, but stuff on Twitter and X and LinkedIn, we may not be able to see those comments real time. So if you do have a question you want to ask the group, we do want them. We definitely want them, but you may have to hop over to the EV Pulse YouTube channel to be able to see those and ask those. So that's a technical limitation of LinkedIn. But I know there's a few people that said that they were going to watch from LinkedIn. So they can participate if they want, or if they just want to hear us talk to them, then stay where they are.
Stay on LinkedIn, your professional network.
You're professional, which doesn't feel as professional these days. Have you guys noticed it's
everybody's merged over?
Yeah, everyone just gone over there.
Left Facebook and they're over on LinkedIn now.
The Facebook and Twitter, and they're like, you know what? I've had this thing I haven't been using for a while. Let me talk to the people who I worked with 15 years ago.
And as my boss told me, it's kind of nice to have the guidelines that your boss might read this, Right. So
you got a
little guardrail there.
But we were told Google and YouTube were like, oh, we're going to put people's real names to comments. That'll prevent them from being jerks on the internet. And
that worked out.
Didn't.
So. You just need your boss with you at all times.
Right.
Just your boss walking around, standing over you.
So it is.
Take that down.
So it is July 10th. 2024, the year of our Lord. My birthday is in 9 days, which is also the release date of Twisters 2, the sequel to Twister. I'm pretty excited about it, actually. But
Is the RAM in it? Is the RAM in it again
yes,
this time?
yes,
Okay. All right.
the
The
TRX, I
original?
believe. No, I believe the Hero Truck is a TRX,
Okay.
Of course it is.
or the TRO, whatever the Hurricane supercharged version is. I think is the Hero Truck. One of those is the Hero Truck, though. But Dodge is definitely back for. I'm sorry, Ram is definitely back for.
That's
for
good.
That. So that'll be exciting. Completely not relevant to this audience unless you liked the original movie, which was, I thought, excellent in a very campy.
Yeah. Big time.
A little bit of
90s
nerdery in there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of science.
But it's also,
it was 90s like blockbuster science.
It was. And honestly, there were so many people who in this industry who were at the right age to be influenced by the Hero Truck in that movie. That started for some, that started their car, sort of obsession, which is and also the first real big car, like proper product placement. Like, Ram said, I'm sorry, at the time Dodge was like, we've got this new truck, it's got this new look. It's not quite on sale yet. How do we get people excited about it? We're going to put it in a movie. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And that's automotive marketing, everybody, putting stuff in
blockbuster movies.
Yes.
And like it fit in there too. It was, that's the thing. Like sense. When you see, I mean, I've seen now some EVs show up in films, and it's like, I'm trying to think Barbie was the one.
Oh, yes.
Where, Chevy had some stuff in there, and it just was like, yeah, we forced this right in here.
Yeah. A lot of
we don't care if it has anything to do with,
Yeah, it was a Blazer EV.
It was all CG too, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Too. They couldn't even get like a real one. Like,
oh no,
come on.
Well,
guys.
for a little while, no one could get a real one. So
true. Stop sales, everybody. We're gonna talk about GM in a little bit, but it's mid-2024. There is a Kennedy running for president whose main slogan is "I didn't eat dogs. I swear I wouldn't eat dogs." Which I'm glad that I've got Craig, you're on here, because I can kind of hear you doing the whole womp 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 womp.
Yeah,
like, I will not eat dogs. Yeah. And I kind of want to talk about sort of like where we are. You also, in addition to sort of your guys' different experience and background, you also live in different parts of the country.
Yep.
Craig, you live in Boston, or just outside of Boston.
Correct.
So Boston's a pretty EV friendly town.
Big time.
But New England, I like talking to you a lot because it gets cold there, like proper cold, like it's
right.
Turns out, and I know that you've had pretty good experiences with EVs, so I definitely want to hear from that. And then, Robbie, you live in San Francisco, which, when it's not a crime-ridden wasteland, which is what I see.
Oh yeah, it's nonstop crime all the time, according to the internet.
Yeah,
I'm wandering around like a crazy person on the streets, enjoying food and music. But yeah, it's any moment I'm going to get shanked.
Yep. And in a couple of months, there's a presidential candidate who pretty much wants to drill baby drill with oil, and says he's not anti-EV, but
He said a lot of anti-EV things.
I say a lot of anti-EV.
That's like saying I'm not anti like a person, but I say a lot of mean stuff about that person.
Right.
I don't hate them. I just don't want them around or near me. And here's some horrible things about that person.
So overall, like, just a real quick temperature check. How do you think the EV industry is doing so far this year? Objectively, I think right now they're doing better than was anticipated. If you look at the beginning of the year, everyone's like, oh, no one's buying EVs. There were stop sales on EVs. Everyone seemed to be having problems outside if they didn't work for the Hyundai Motor Group, essentially.
Right.
Everyone seemed to like, oh no, what's happening? Everyone was pulling back. I think right now Ford has found a sweet spot with its sales of the Mach-E and the Lightning. HMG is still doing great, but I think it's really, GM, like, hey, we're delivering cars. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, they had a period of time where delivering cars was perhaps a bit of a problem.
I feel the same way. It's like I don't really think there's any issue with the product at this point. There's some that are better than others, but the product that I've experienced has all been really, really good. and it's still this challenge of getting people to understand how you live with one of these things and whether or not they want to invest the time and energy in doing that.
Well, and that's
the biggest problem.
And that is our job. And unfortunately, we have colleagues, AirTag colleagues, that do make that a bit of a challenge.
Correct.
But also, there is a lot of information out there. Really kind of trying to talk out of, to talk people people out of buying EVs. Like, they have to be this one size fits all solution. Every single EV on sale has to be all things to all people.
Right.
And we don't hold that same expectation to a 911 or a Miata. We never used to with pickup trucks either until pickup trucks had to become family cars. But we really don't hold anything else to those standards. And for some reason, we have to do with EVs. Though one criticism is the charging network, which I do think is getting quite better. Still not great. It's still not great. But I mean, Robbie, today, Toyota of all people.
Toyota. The angry college kid who slammed his door because he had to build the BZ4X.
Right.
Yeah. Now joined Diana.
They joined Diana, which is
before like Nissan even.
Yeah. So, and Nissan has the Ariya and of course the Leaf, which has been around for 700 years in EV time. No, Toyota's a huge get for Ayana. And I think it's Toyota sort of realizing not everyone's going to jump on the hydrogen bandwagon anytime soon, at least.
The 3 people who bought those cars, they're going to be return customers for sure.
And we met, and Craig, we met one of them once.
My favorite story. I've told that story 100 times. Can I tell it real quick?
Yeah, please.
So we were on the Subaru Solterra launch in where were we? Catalina Island.
Yeah, we're in Catalina.
And we're off road. We're on this little dirt path, and we stop at a restroom, and we meet this couple that are bicycling. And they came out and they were really interested in this Solterra, asked a ton of good questions. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And we got out of them that they were Mirai owners and they lived in the Bay Area somewhere. And wherever they were, their one convenient hydrogen fueling station had been down for like 3 months.
Oh no.
So it got to the point where Toyota actually had to send him a RAV4 hybrid, right? Just to tide him over until such point as, the hydrogen fueling station came back online again. But it was like, this is the issue here, right? And if you think, I love having conversations with people who the first thing out of their mouth is, well, what about the infrastructure with EVs? And then in the same breath, they'll tell you, I'm hanging on there for the hydrogen car. There is no place within 8 hours of me that I could get fuel for a hydrogen car.
Right.
There was one in Boston and that closed. And now the closest one is in another country. It's in Quebec. So it's like, if you think electricity is a problem, wait till you hear about the problems with the hydrogen infrastructure,
and even like Toyota, who is pushing hydrogen quite a bit,
right?
If they want to use hydrogen at any of their research facilities, either in Ypsilanti or in Saline, Michigan, it comes from a truck from California. They load it onto an 18-wheeler. GM with Hydrotech, same sort of thing. I just pulled up your Living with Electric Vehicle, which you rode right around the time we ended up driving.
Correct.
That's Solterra.
Yep.
But yeah, it was good on Toyota for obviously supplying them a car.
Sure. And I think it's a great experiment. It's just not ready for prime time. I mean, I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
At this point,
I think it works.
It does work. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see hydrogen for long haul trucking, and because there's an infrastructure and there's corridors that these trucks are always on, and so it'll be easier. Let's just say easier in quotations for those for along those corridors to put hydrogen fueling stations in, and then once those are in and long haul trucking, then the people who live near those hydrogen stations be like, oh, maybe I can get a Mirai, or I can get a Nexo, or I can get the new the CRV with a bunch of letters scrambled into it that I can't remember. That's a hybrid. That's also
FCRVE, SC, whatever. I drove one.
Yeah, the CRV. the hydrogen CRV.
CRV-H.
Those people will start they can buy those, and then it'll kind of spider web from those little hubs along the corridors. But until there's somewhere to refuel a vehicle, it's impossible to sell the vehicle outside. I live in the Bay Area, so I'll see Mirais around here. Right. And the best place whenever I have a Mirai or a Nexo or whatever, there's always 20% of stations are down. The only one I can trust is the one in Emeryville that's next to the bus depot, because all the buses run on hydrogen. So they gotta have hydrogen there.
Come on, Roberto. Who doesn't want to hang out at the bus station?
Well, there's a big long fence along the bus station, so you can't see into it. And there's a little carve out. Carve out, and so you can pull in, fuel your vehicle, and then pull out. It's just
well, and that's
a very interesting setup.
Robbie, you brought up a good point though, which is stations have to work. Everybody craps on EV charging stations not working, and a lot of them don't work. Right. But when a hydrogen fueling station goes out, that's a problem. Right. So Toyota's obviously has used this has used this stuff to work on their Class A trucks and things like that. I think that's makes a lot of sense. Hyundai's doing the same thing. The Tri-Gen facility at the Port of Long Beach and what they're doing there, I think is actually very important. But as a passenger car, I'm not sure why Mirai is still a thing. I'm not sure why the CRV hydrogen, other than as a proof of concept, exists. Though it is a plug-in hybrid hydrogen, so you could just run on 28 miles of electricity and
just 28 miles at a time.
Just plug it in. But yeah, it's something. But
I'm all for alternative. I don't care what the alternative is, right? It can be hydrogen, it could be electricity, whatever it is. It's a reduction in that, not only just the amount of oil we pump out of the ground, which is insane every year, but the amount of electric energy it costs to refine that into gasoline. If you can cut that by 30%, we're doing great. We power every car in the United States with that,
Well, and if we could move corporate average, fuel economy standards just higher,
right?
Every 1 or 2 miles per gallon improvement on an F-150 is significantly better than getting somebody to go from their current Prius to a new Prius.
Correct.
So, in this weird time that is kind of 2024,
multi-prong approach.
In this weird time, though, in 2024, where we're told that EVs aren't growing, which is false. They're selling more EVs now than they sold last year. Some big news, though, is there's one particular EV maker who maybe isn't having the best of time. Well, there's a few. Fisker, we're not going to talk about that.
Right.
But one of those is Tesla. They are no longer greater than 50% of new EV market share. I mean, there was a time where it was every single new EV was a Tesla. And for good reason. For a while, there was only Teslas.
You could get a Tesla or you could get a Leaf.
And you could get a Leaf.
That was it.
There are some things that I think Tesla does very well, which we'll talk about later. But why is this happening? Is it more competition? Is it something else? What's the deal?
It's definitely more competition. This is expected. I mean, you can only be the Kleenex of EVs for so long. Eventually, other companies start making, tissues, facial tissues.
That should be their tagline, by the way.
We're the Kleenex
of EVs.
We're the Kleenex of EVs. Right. So they should have anticipated this. It shouldn't be really a surprise to anyone that they're going to lose market share. They still sell a lot of vehicles, and they still have stock market, whatever that means. Stock market is a made up crazy land, but they still are worth more than every other automaker. Most of them combined, to be honest. So Tesla's not hurting per se, but I think there's some weird there's some weird ideas going on coming from the top right now at Tesla in sort of reaction to this, versus saying, okay, we have to compete with other cars now, as opposed to being the only kid on the block.
I mean, we could argue whether Tesla's a meme stock these days and what leadership is doing, but I do think leadership has some influence on Tesla's dwindling market share. The Model Y is still the best-selling car on the planet. It's it's probably going to be a while before you take that away from it.
Right.
But there are some people
it was interesting in the beginning to see where it was stealing sales from the conventional US market, and it was all the high end. It was like you could see like S Class, 7 Series, Audi A8, like they just disappeared, and their sales numbers went in the tank as soon as the Model S came out. So now it's a much lower tier that they're competing in, and they're competing with volume vehicles, so it's a kind of a different place that they're in right now, and they're competing with a different class of vehicles. So naturally that was going to get tougher.
Yeah. And the volume is at the lower end anyway. New EV transaction price is something like $66,000, but the holy grail is trying to get under 40, 30. Right? Yeah, if you can get under 30, that'd be amazing, but getting under 40, there's a lot of incentives and stuff now, of course, that have been helping along with that.
I look at a vehicle like the Kia Niro, like that class of vehicle that does what a lot of people would want out of an EV, which, if you're commuting and, from where I live into Boston every day, it's a hell commute every day. You are going to be better off with that Niro EV than you would be a competitive 3 or 4 cylinder car. It's just going to be a better experience.
If you're going to just sit in traffic, what does it matter?
What does it matter? And I think that's the thing. Like, we've had this conversation with people who live in different, in like Colorado and Nebraska and out in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, well, it almost doesn't matter what you drive. Right. What matters is the kind of cars that people drive where people live, where millions and millions of people live. And I'm like, that's a smaller thing for me being in Boston, but San Francisco and LA and all these places with millions of people driving every day, it makes a huge difference if you can take a slice of that and make that electric. That's a huge advantage.
The McKinsey study, somebody actually requested it. We were going to talk about it.
Thank God.
But it was requested.
What a segue.
What a segue. McKinsey and Company, if you haven't watched the John Oliver Last Week Tonight takedown of McKinsey and Company, you should.
Yep.
Because the company is, I don't want to get sued, but
they're not great. They're not good citizens. They're not good corporate citizens.
But what they said was, just to keep it a little on track too.
Sure.
What they did say was 40% of all EV buyers want to go back to ICE cars afterwards. And this commenter wants to talk about this, and then added another comment after was they've never talked to anybody that's done that. Oh, my camera's frozen. I've also never talked to anybody that's never talked to anybody that's done it. Who's switching back unless you didn't have the ability to charge at home or had some weird situation like that. I don't know anybody switching back.
Right. Totally anecdotal, but no EV owner that I know is switching back to an ICE. Now, what they might do is they might have a second car that's in the ICE, which I think a lot of people do. But the thing, there are a lot of things going on with this study. The people who got the most traction out of it were Fox Business. So, like that was who kind of amplified this thing in the beginning. And then, there's this idea like, well, what questions are they asking? Like, what's the specific question that they're asking people that they think that many people are leaving? And this is also the company who told you 3 years ago that every one of us was going to be driving an EV by 2030. Like, the ICE's done. Like, I've cited that study myself.
Right.
So, like, you got to take all of this stuff from a third party agency like this with a grain of salt.
Right. And electric vehicle charging is so bad. Like, in some places EV charging is bad, but the long story really the long story short is, if you are looking to buy an EV as a second car, great, fantastic. If you have an ICE car already in your garage, if you have the ability to charge at home or at work on the regular, you'll also have a good time.
Yep.
If you don't have those, look at a hybrid. Look at maybe something else, because if you have to use right now in 2024, if you have to use a DC fast charger as your gas station, if you're treating that as a full-time gas pump, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, the expense is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm so, in the Boston area, I'm always going back and forth to Maine, to Portland. I'm actually shocked at how great the coverage is in Portland. So there's a bunch of EVgo stations up there, level 3 chargers up there, which are great. And then they just put one in at a Target right close to my house here. And so I end up using those pretty frequently. And I used to use level 2 chargers that were a mile from my house, and I run all the time. So I just incorporate it in my run, but I get it. Not everybody's going to do that. So you're right, Chad, you got to have a level 2 charger at your house. And if you don't, I totally understand why you wouldn't want another one.
And right now you should probably get one that is a SAE J3400.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the standard isn't out quite yet, the official standard, but there are stations that are out there, and there are people are already going over to the standard, but it's not actually official done yet. It's not set in stone. There's still some more stuff. It's supposed to be the end of this year.
Okay.
Which is information that most people don't need to know.
Well, and you can access Rivian and Ford owners can now access the Tesla Supercharger network through an adapter that's back ordered for like 6 months. There's actually a link. There's actually a link in the YouTube description box for the Lectron version of that. It ain't free. It ain't free, but
how much is it?
It's $249.
Yeah.
We have one we're going to test here fairly soon once I get around to doing it. But
I drove a Mach-E with that a converter that they sent out to Ford owners for a video I did about for J3400 versus CCS and what's happening. Yeah. And every time I just plug it in and it worked. And I was just like, okay, well,
yeah, it works.
Because there's no display on the Tesla thing. So like, is this working? Then you just kind of look on the car and like, oh, I guess it is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go eat a taco or some pizza, and I just wander off.
We've done a couple of videos on it. I've personally used it a few times. Ben on our team, my producer Ben, has a Mach-E, so we have regular access to stuff like that, which is great. And then the A to Z Typhoon adapter is also available. I don't have a link for that one, but it's also the other company out there selling these, so that you can use your CCS equipped car with a Tesla adapter. And it's super simple. Plug whether you're using the supplied one from Ford or Rivian, which are actually all made by Tesla, or using one of the third party ones, you click it into the car. It just sort of does its magic.
And that kind of takes all of the concern, or a lot of the concern about the charging network, off the table for a lot of people. I mean, it's just a better network.
Yeah. Stephanie says that, again, DC exclusive charging is murder in Texas. I mean, it's probably murder everywhere. But
I mean, I can't swing a stick without hitting a charging station in Northern California, to be honest.
That's true.
Yeah, right.
But one there and one there.
But there's also, I mean, and Stephanie, something we've talked a little bit about briefly in the past, is also DC fast charging can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, some of these chargers are out in the middle of absolute nowhere, or in the back of Walmart parking lots with no lighting. Like, I wouldn't want to pull in there at night in some of the cars that I get to drive. So, and I'm a white dude. If I was a woman, I'd be way more concerned.
Yeah. The model to me is the one that just went in at the Target near my house. It's like they put 6 of them in, which is great. They all work individually, so there's no issue, like load balancing or anything like that. And it's relatively close to the front of the store, and it's well lighted. Like, that's all you should be asking, and there's always one available. So it's a great setup.
If you don't drive that Yeah, no, not at all. If you don't drive that much, a level 1 will work. One thing I will say, there will be some commenters that will eventually say this too. The efficiency of a level 1 charger is actually pretty poor. You lose a lot of energy to heat. Where level 2 is actually probably is more efficient in delivering power to a car. But like, I drive like once a week a place, so a level 1 is actually fine for me and everything, other than like a Hummer, which would take 3 weeks to
charge.
Yeah. I mean, we did talk a little bit briefly about cheap EVs, and of course, Biden tariff on that. I think really what I want to say there is, like, it seems pretty obvious that we aren't going to get directly Chinese-made EVs here, but the Chinese are crushing it on the batteries. Do you see the Chinese making any inroads? I mean, this just obviously just popped in. Do you think the Chinese will get here? I'm not so sure.
I think at some point, it's politically right now, it's just not going to happen. I think at some point that there's, CATL. I mean, the Chinese are 10 years ahead of us in EVs. That's anyone who's working in batteries and in EVs internationally can tell you that. But it's also because they, it's highly, they get a lot of money from the government in order to do that, which is something we probably should have done here earlier. But fine, whatever. So I think, maybe 5-10 years, the Chinese will be where the Japanese were in the 70s and where the Koreans were in the 90s, where they come in and it takes a little while and people are initially not going to buy them. And then eventually, we end up with, Toyota, Kia, and Honda and Hyundai. And you look at those 4 companies, you're like, those are, they have a hardcore fan base and they make really good cars.
Yeah.
So,
I have to keep reminding people that it's not 1986 anymore, and Hyundai no longer makes the Excel. So,
or the accident.
Whatever.
The Excel was so bad.
Oh, it was horrible, right? And but people have a long memory with that stuff. And when you say to them, look, man, I don't know why anybody, if you're a luxury car buyer, I don't know why you buy anything but the Genesis.
Yeah.
Like
I would do
the first thing somebody will say is, oh, well, it's just a Hyundai. Well, yeah, that's the point. That's the good part.
If I'm buying a luxury EV, I'm buying the Rolls-Royce Spectre. So
yeah, right. Well,
I don't know much.
Well, you're the VP of content. We're just regular old editors.
Big money.
We just got editor money.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much money in this business. all the money in this business.
So my wife owned a Hyundai Excel in the 90s. And she hated it. She absolutely hated it. I had talked her into getting, we got a Kona electric, and she went and drove it, and she's like, oh wow. So we've had that for 3 years. We're turning it in, and we just got an Ioniq 5. We just keep buying these, again, in 1990, if someone said, hey, you're going to get a electric Hyundai, I'll be like, no.
Yeah.
Now it's a very easy sell for someone who drives all of these EVs. I'm like, well, yeah, let's just get this 800-volt architecture, charges really quick, charging curve is really nice. They're comfortable. They drive well. They don't overcomplicate the interior and settings. It's just all the things you want from a car.
And simultaneously, those things, like I just got out of the Ioniq 6, it feels like the future. Yet everything is kind of like, it kind of works the way you'd expect it to. The gear shift is a little weird, but you get used to it. Mm-hmm. Unlike a Mercedes product, which I still fight with, decades after that turn signal stock they have.
Yeah.
But it works, and it feels like, hey, wow, this is kind of like, this is advanced. It's not just, whatever you would buy in 2024 with an electric motor in it. This feels like they're pushing the boat out there pretty far, and I love it.
Feel like you're getting a really good value. Like the interiors are really nice, so you have this, much nicer interior for the price point. And then the acceleration mapping on the Ioniq 6 versus like the Ioniq 5 when it first came out, like it was such a jump just in the acceleration mapping where you're like, wow. Yep. And again, this is a thing that people who drive a lot of cars think about and notice, but they didn't have to do that, and they did.
Ioniq 6 is a better driving car than the Ioniq 5.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My wife doesn't like the way the Ioniq 6 looks.
Well, yeah. I have an 80-something-year-old neighbor. He wanted me to make sure to tell everybody exterior styling no good on the Ioniq 6. Didn't like it.
Well,
he rates everything in my driveway. Did not like that. So
well,
like,
let's get to a couple of more questions before we do the last not little thing, but the last thing I'd like to do.
Sure.
We'll start with Corey here. He's a Ford employee and he's 2 times Mach-E owner. We have one Mach-E. We have one Mach-E in our group as well. I know some people with them. With the shift away from Model E, how do you think that'll affect Ford EV sales and current ownership experience? One, I froze my camera, so I'll have to deal with that. But one, like Ford in Europe seems to have their foot sort of on the accelerator. And I don't know why they're not here. I don't know why there's not an electric Explorer here. No, it shouldn't be the MEB Volkswagen Explorer there. It should be a proper 3-row EV. But where is it?
Yeah.
Where is this stuff? Where is the product? You guys, Ford, like what do you I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about Ford specifically, but like addressing this as a current owner, do you think that he should be concerned? Anything like that?
I think they're just they looked at, especially F-150 Lightning. I think they thought that was going to sell a lot better than it did. And the F-150 Lightning is a great truck, and it's probably the best truck for 80% of F-150 owners, period. It's the best F-150 for most people. But a lot of people, they buy trucks because they want big truck, vroom, vroom. That's what they want. They don't want big truck. They don't. That's not where they're buying the truck. And I think so. I think they saw the lack of sales on that, and they sort of freaked out a little bit because they put a lot of money into it, and they're like, well, it's not selling well. And then, they did this weird thing that Tesla does, where they just kept manipulating prices, or not manipulating, just changing prices. And it turned off consumers. It turned off fleet sales. The Mach-E is a great EV. When I had it 2 weeks ago, I loved it. I drove it around. It's a great little EV. Anyone who has an Mach-E should be happy. I don't think they're going to abandon EVs. I think they realize they're like, well, even if the California changeover, 2035, you can't sell any new vehicles that are gas powered. That's still a pretty long way off. They're like, let's just keep making money on gas cars, and we'll just sort of slow our roll into EVs. And I think the biggest problem within all the companies that are doing that is that they're giving up market share, and they're giving up loyalty to the Hyundai Motor Group.
That's the real thing, is they're ceding ground, just like Nissan had so much ground with Leaf, and then they just seem to be ceding that.
Yeah.
I agree with the F-150 too. It was it's a great truck.
Fantastic.
It was
the best F-150,
right? So the right product probably would have been the Maverick or the Ranger.
Yeah.
Something a smaller scale. Like, I wish the Maverick was a plug-in hybrid. Yeah. That would be ideal.
All right, save the rest of those comments for the we're going to do a tier list here in a little bit.
Okay.
Tease ahead, and you guys are talking way too much about stuff. We can talk about that.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Talking.
I just know we're on a time. I just know we're on a time limit. Mike the Car Geek, opportunity. What are your thoughts about buying an EV from Hertz or Avis? Rental cars, the fastest cars in the world. There's 2 cars I would never buy personally: a former press car and a former rental car. So I'm out.
I would buy one.
If it had under 60,000 miles, I might just buy one.
I would give it a shot, because you're protected by the battery warranty anyway. And, there's so much less to go wrong. A gas engine could have been run without oil for 4 months. I work for a rental agency, 2 of them. And I can tell you that for sure. I check the oil on, I don't know, maybe every 6th time I'd see a car. Yeah. So, who knows how those things are treated, but there's a lot less to go wrong with an EV. And I think I'd take the risk.
I would look around if it's a really, really good deal. If it's a really good deal on a Polestar 2, I'd be like, yeah, sure.
I would probably stay away from the Tesla, only because I know of other mechanical weirdness.
The suspension issue with Tesla.
Suspension is really
it makes me.
So I would probably sort of stay away from that personally. And And Iona, we just saw Toyota's. How fast do you think it'll come to market compared to Supercharged Network? I mean,
they're saying 30,000 by 2030.
Yeah. I mean, it takes time for these to put in. I think their biggest hurdles are going to be permitting, finding spots and then getting the permitting to put them in.
But I'm optimistic. This is what should have happened from the get-go.
All these guys have skin in the game now.
Yeah.
Electrify America, not everybody had skin in the game. None of these other things had skin in the game. I know Ionity in Europe isn't the best, but at least every single automaker has committed to it.
Right.
Yeah. They put up. A lot of companies, a lot of automakers trusted Electrify America to do a really smooth, really nice rollout with DC fast chargers, and it just didn't happen. And when you start the company based on the government saying, "Hey, you got to do this," it's maybe not the best incentive.
Yeah.
So
and the new Capri, just speaking of Ford, they dropped that today. I think it looks like a Polestar 2. I think they stole the design exactly from Polestar 2. I think it's just on Volkswagen's MEB platform. So I don't know. I mean, we were talking pre-show PF Cutters about names they could bring back.
I'm hoping for Tempo. They bring
the Ford Tempo.
The Tempo that would be a good
Mercury Topaz.
The Probe. I mean, the Probe has to come back.
Probe.
Yeah, we got to bring the Probe back. The Mustang too.
Yeah, the Mustang too.
I would like
all these names that everybody forgot. It's not like we're bringing back Fairlane. It's like
Stephanie, our Murder Texas charging has an EV6, which is a fantastic car.
That's great. It's just my hatchback as a wagon.
Yeah,
the Ioniq 5.
I love it. Yeah, it's so good.
It's great.
All right, because we've got probably not enough time. One thing I wanted to do to kind of spice up this live stream is I want to make a tier list. I want to see a report card of how people and things are doing right now in 2024 in mid-July. 5 levels, basically it's a grading system. It's not just all the cool kids call them tier lists these days, and not.
I never heard of it until today. Cards. Apparently, I'm not paying attention.
VinFast, are we all going to agree that they could be doing a lot better here?
D.
Yeah. The pricing isn't there. Like if they were less money than the competitors, I feel like you could take the risk on them being a new car company.
They are Hyundai in the 90s right now. If they can stick it out like 5 years and then just increase quality like Hyundai and Honda and Toyota did over the course of a decade, they'll be fine. But right now they're not great.
JLR, Jaguar Land Rover. I know there's the F-Pace, E-Pace, Q-Pace. I don't remember what
I drove the F-Pace probably 4 years ago.
No, I-Pace. Yeah.
I-Pace, sorry. And I really liked it, but it's been so much time now that I don't know how that thing stacks up to anything at this point. I really did like it.
It was bold of them to be like one of the first company to be like, we're going to take on the Model X.
Yeah.
So I think like initially they just came out strong, and then because of JLR issues all around, it's not great. But the Range Rover, the PHEV, it's like 50 miles of range.
It's got you can actually DC fast charge it, which
it's got DC fast charging.
So do you think so?
At least C
tier, yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, at least C, and that's only because they just don't have the money essentially to keep doing what they did before.
I mean, Tesla almost has to be an S tier. I know their quality is the only.
Does it have to be
their biggest? Okay.
Their killer app is the charging network.
They have 2 killer apps: Charging Network, which is still good, and the trip planning software, which is still second to none.
I'm going to give them a third thing: is the bypassing the franchise dealer network. That I think selling direct like that. So here's the thing with Tesla: I've never driven one because they've never sent me one. Right, so they don't send one to anybody. I've never driven one, so I can't talk about the product. But those 3 things I really like about the company.
I mean, the ownership experience has been we had one for 3 years. It was fine. We had some suspension issues.
Yep.
I really kind of want to move them to A, especially after Cybertruck. But the problem is these guys are still the target. And until all of these automakers realize that these guys are the target, they have to be up there. They just do. Mazda MX-30 was terrible.
Do they have any? Yeah, the
MX-30. It's terrible.
It didn't give you the Mazda experience, at least with the Mini SE, the low electric Mini. It was a Mini experience. They delivered the promise of a Mini experience. Mazda should deliver the promise of a Mazda experience, and the car was kind of funky and fun because it had a little suicide door and it had cork in it, but it just didn't feel like a Mazda.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like it's almost like it could have been the 500e, right? Which is actually a really neat little vehicle.
Yeah, the new one's pretty fun too. It's a little pricier than it should be.
Great.
The new one's still,
but like Mazda, you tend to forget that they even have one.
Yeah. I think Nissan is a B. I think. I think the Aria is good.
So I like the E4 it's a good system. I really like.
I think a lot of new product is getting, I don't want to say delayed because they haven't announced it yet, but it feels like stuff should be moving quicker with them, and it's not. That's the only reason why I wouldn't put them higher. Let's grab some other easy ones. Geely, I listed them here entirely, so we're going to cover Lotus, Polestar, Volvo.
Got it.
I forget who I'm missing. The thing is, like, I think Volvo's doing pretty well. I think Polestar isn't.
Yep.
The Polestar's so good.
It's so good.
The Polestar is good. Their sales are terrible.
Right.
Their best selling, the best area they sell in is the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I asked them one day, I'm like, is the Bay Area your best market? And then they're like, someone's like, no. And then the president was like, yes, it is.
Yeah.
So here they look like they're doing great.
I see a lot of them around. I see a lot of them around here.
I think they're A though. I think overall, I think it's A. I think
they're doing. Yeah. Okay.
I think they're doing well for what they're doing. It's just,
I think
Polestar isn't a big name.
Yeah. I think Polestar and Volvo both have interesting product coming as well.
Yeah.
Too. It's unfortunate about the EX30's delay, but that's due to tariff.
Yeah.
Let's just get it out of the way.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good to me.
Just throw it up top.
I mean, there's some things, just like I think Tesla could be doing some things better. I think Hyundai Motor Group collectively could be doing some things better. But like this is the ultimate bullseye. Tesla's the ultimate bullseye. And then this is probably the most improved. Like this is the people that are taking this absolutely seriously. And they put
route planning in their better route planning in their cars, and it's over.
Yeah.
Like once the network opened, they're supposed to be sending out the adapters at the end of this year.
Yep.
Maybe.
Let me ask you, what do you think? How important do you think things like camp mode and all of that kind of stuff in the Tesla products is to the people who are actually buying those things?
I think dog mode's a big deal. That's only because I have a dog.
Yeah.
No, every automaker should have dog mode, and Rivian's the only other one.
People are using it, and I know they're using it because I look at who buys stuff on Amazon through our like camp mode article on EV Pulse, and people are using it. Is somebody going to buy it because of that? No. But are they going to keep it? Are they going to keep it though, or go back to it, or feel it's this intangible? It's this warm fuzzy that you get from the ownership experience and the continuous rollout of software updates, which nobody else does. Ford does a decent job with, but nobody rolls out software updates like Tesla. Yeah. And that wins you over a lot of customers who are like, oh, my not new car is now new again, which is great.
That's a huge that's a huge win for owners who are having
GM gonna GM. So not having CarPlay and Android Auto. They got CarPlay and Android Auto is a big miss, I think, on new stuff. But they still have it on some of their current stuff. I think Ultium, when it works,
is awesome.
Pretty compelling.
The Lyric is great.
Super Cruise is great. Lyric is great. Equinox apparently is great. Craig has driven it. I haven't. I mean, Craig Cole on my team has driven it. I haven't. They're definitely not here.
Oh no, they're not there. I think they're between A and B. They're moving into A. I think the misstep is Apple CarPlay. I think that's the misstep.
So this is funny. I loathe Apple CarPlay.
Oh yeah. No, it's you and Stu Falls should.
I'm the outlier. I really like if that goes away. I would be thrilled. Yeah.
It's mostly for me. It's access to a lot, like whatever audio thing I will listen to, and the ability, like people text me constantly because I'm a 12-year-old girl. Yeah. And so I'm constantly just replying to text while I'm driving it. It's super easy.
I don't do that at all. It's my quiet time inside the car. I don't want to be interrupted with that at all. So I'm not using half the features of it. Nissan, and I hate that it dominates everything.
The whole screen.
Yeah.
Nissan would be an A if they had more product. They don't, and we're not. And we know there's new product coming. GM's farther along with the new product rollout. I think that's where I'm going to draw the distinction between the A and B on here. Honda though is firmly in a B. They're using a GM, they're using an Ultium product. They had some other stuff coming, but they've kind of put the pause on that. The Prelude that they're showing at Goodwood, like right now, is a hybrid only. We need to hear some more stuff. We need to hear more about what they're doing. Yeah. But the Prologue and Acura MDX or ZDX, I'm sorry, are both good. I mean, they're Ultium based stuff, and they have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which
you're getting Plus, even if they're slowing their stuff down, they're committed to EVs. They dragged me all the way to Japan to have the CEO tell me that.
They did. They did.
And so I think and I think when you have a Honda, that's the crazy thing about Honda and Toyota is once they have like their own EVs, like proper, like they worked hard on them, like they do like an Accord or a Tacoma. Once that comes out, people are just going to buy it because people when you think reliability, you just automatically think Honda and Toyota, and people are just going to buy them.
I'm sorry, we got a Subaru writer with us.
I'm going to recuse myself from the vote.
Okay, he's going to recuse himself from the vote. I'm going full D here. I'm sorry. The only reason being is I haven't heard any other news other than Solterra.
I think they get a C because when I went to the LA Auto Show and the Solterra was front and center, whereas the BZ4X was off in a corner on the Toyota.
Okay, then I will grant you that.
They know that they understand their audience and they would like more EVs. They just don't have the money, and so they're sort of beholden to Toyota to. And
the charging speed, thing this year is
they fixed that. Yeah, you're right. So, they did fix that. So that's definitely there.
So no vote for me, but I did. Yeah, I do appreciate that. Yeah.
Toyota. I mean, Ayana. Look at that. I think that almost makes me want to say B, but I have a hard
I just want them to make the time. They showed off so many. That's the here's the problem with Toyota right now is they showed off a bunch of really awesome EVs
and then don't do it.
And then they're just like, well, we're not gonna. We'll make them when we make them. But here's another GR Corolla. By the way, GR Corolla is amazing. But it's gonna they're trying to shift the culture of an entire company that's run by a person who loves racing gas powered cars, right? That's where Toyota is. It's I think again when there's an electric Tacoma or an electric SR5, whatever they want to do, it's going to sell like gangbusters. They're going to do great.
And I would consider this a C+ because I do think the Iona news is actually a really big deal coming from that company. Rivian, I mean, they've got money now. They found some money.
They got cars that people want, and they got amazing cars coming. So they're at least a B.
I see the Rivians everywhere here. They're just I see one a day. And
their driver assistance stuff needs to be better. They don't have a really good level. Their level 2 ADAS is mediocre at best. But the product's compelling. They've got a lot of cool stuff coming. And now that they have
wait to see that our what is it, R2? Is that what
the R2 and the R3?
To see that in the flesh.
So they knocked both of those out of the park. So now they have the big pile of money from Volkswagen, so they can.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I forgot to add the Lucid graphic. I don't know if I had one added here or not. Maybe I didn't.
They make a great car. But it's expensive, and I think they're going to do better once the
their efficiency
gravity.
It's
bonkers. Their efficiency, their engineering, everything they do is bonkers. The problem is that they are targeting German luxury,
right?
And German luxury is still German luxury, especially when you look at the i7. You're just like, no.
All right, Volkswagen. Porsche's Taycan, great. Porsche's moved EVs, great. Audi stuff doing pretty good. I think those are all great, all 800 volt stuff. I like everything that we're coming from there. ID4 is now built in North America, it's available for the tax credit. I think that's good. The infotainment's better, that's good. I want to reach for that A there, Robbie.
So where's
the ID
Buzz?
Where is it?
Yeah,
where is it? How much is it?
So this is how long have we been in this industry and been waiting for some kind of microbus? It's 25 years. It's as long as I've been in this industry. They have shown one version after another, and it never shows up.
Is the Buzz? Is the concept now 8 years old?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. There's currently a poll on the EV Pulse YouTube page for what's going to happen first, pricing on ID Buzz or Heat Death of the Universe. And right now, Heat Death of the Universe is winning.
Yeah, I agree.
Robbie, I really have a hard time putting them in the A column. But are they? I mean, on the high end, they're A all the way.
Yeah.
On the high end, the Porsche, the Taycans, the higher e-trons, all that stuff, they're doing great. All those, the Qs, the Macan that's coming. I think that it's just, I think what happens is like you see the ID4 and you're like, okay, it's gotten better. So they get props for making the ID4 better.
It is.
But it's they Volkswagen itself is just like, it looks like they're not, the main company looks like it's not doing anything because we're all just standing around waiting for the ID bus.
Well, right. And today's Ford announcements of Volkswagen and the Ford Explorer in Europe's a Volkswagen.
Yep.
So,
it's kind of right. It straddles that line.
It's like a B plus, A minus.
Yeah, if only they applied themselves.
What the Taycan is? I think the Taycan changed everything chassis wise. So I think we should give them an A just for the Taycan chassis.
All right.
I think everyone drove that. Everyone pulled that car in. They drove it, and then they went to their chassis person and said, "Hey, could you start over because you just drove something?"
Yes. Yeah. BMW.
Oh yeah. They're killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I would almost push that into B minus territory.
I think the cars are good. It's just that
but you know what
they allow the engineers to design the cars is what happened. Yeah. And I think that hurt them.
It was like, well, let's just take what we already do and electrify it. And it feels like there's a lot of missed opportunity.
I haven't driven the electric G-Wagon, which I think is the perfect powertrain for the G-Wagon. But EQS sedan should be an S class. It's not.
It's not an S class.
EQS SUV.
It's better than the EQS.
Yeah,
because you get that rear seat. Going on that you're not getting the EQS sedan. Yeah, but I think there was some missteps when it came to, and when the cars came out, they were almost in a vacuum because there were no other like real luxury vehicles. And then BMW showed up and it's like, by the way, look what we did. We just took our cool cars and made them electric. So every the i5, the i4, the i7, they're all the best versions of that car.
Yeah, and they're not dedicated platforms either, and they're able to prove that they don't need the dedicated platform. I think Mercedes, everyone that I've driven has been good, but I feel like I want some more out of it. And some of them are good, but just things again. How do you mess up in the S class? Yeah, you shouldn't. You've been building it forever, and
there was a lot of they made a lot of compromises, which they probably shouldn't have done.
Ford real recently is really irritating again, as we talked about earlier, pulling back on things like that and whatever. But I think the Mach-E is good. I think the Lightning is good. I think, though, I would put them in a B just because that's the only products that we know about here. The European stuff is all the Volkswagen.
I mean, it's great. I would maybe give them a B plus because they moved so quickly with the Tesla thing and sort of forced everyone else over into the NACS or J3400, which is actually what it's now called. So I think that was it's a good move. Someone had to do it because the CCS charging network just wasn't being built out the way it should have and the way everyone was waiting for. And to be honest, whenever I plug in a CCS into my car, I always think about my mom, and she doesn't have a lot of muscle mass.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
No,
whereas the Tesla one's just like a little. It's like shoving a tube of toothpaste in a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then here,
Stellantis.
They've got a lot of stuff coming. They do. They have. I mean, this year it's the Ram, the full battery electric Ram 1500, right, which is probably technically a 3500, but we won't go there. The Jeep Recon, the Wagoneer S, the Fiat 500 is already here. Like this year, they're slated to launch like 4 Dodge Charger, the Charger Daytona EV.
I'm in a wait and see mode with Stellantis.
So
I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to say B, just because Stellantis, they have to they have to work on EVs anyway because of their large footprint in Europe. So
yeah. I think what's holding them back maybe from being an A is just moving out of that. Hey, here are all our concept stage, and like, hey, here's cars. You know,
here's cars.
Here's cars, people.
Let us drive the cars.
Credit for building a car, instead of an SUV or a crossover or whatever. I'm pretty excited about the Charger.
Yeah,
the Charger.
That's saying. PF cutters, no. They've got to be built. It's got to be NAFTA, and we're waiting for Canton, Mississippi. That's the plant that needs to get retooled for EVs. Once that's there, we're in decent shape. And how long do you think for GM, since they were the third to announce, whatever? They're actually technically the second to announce, and Rivian beat them. I think they're having some software issues because I had heard that they had pushed some updates and then ended up not doing that full sort of announcement. So there we go. The tier list. Maybe I'll make this available somewhere for you all to see and argue over. But I know, Craig, you've got to go. So where can people find you?
SubaruDrive.com is probably the easiest place to find me, but Car Gurus occasionally, a few other places here and there, but Subaru Drive is kind of where I am primarily.
Yeah. And the whole audience can hear this. Stick around when the stream ends for a second.
Got it.
Roberto, where can people find your music?
My music?
Where can they find you? No, where can they find you? Sorry. I'm not
find, so most of my job is at SAE, and so you can find my articles at sustainablecareers.sae.org. But I also write for Ars Technica. I have stuff coming up for Wired. I'm doing some stuff for. So I am allowed to freelance and go out into the world and talk with other people. So it's not always just J's and 3400s and stuff like that. But,
right.
And then the bands, you can just find me on, I guess, Facebook. I'm the only Roberto Baldwin in like the United States, as far as I can tell. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Okay. And evpulse.com is the place. Thank you both for coming. Thank you all for watching. This has been fun. And let me see if I can know how to do the close. Maybe.